Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, no matter where you're calling from. My name is Mike, and it is my absolute pleasure to see you all piling into today's session, which is, of course, as you can see, how we can get started with Waybook. I'm one of the co-founders here at Waybook, and I'm really excited to spend the next 30 minutes or so with you, basically talking about how you can get the most out of your Waybook as soon as you possibly can. So these are some of my favorite sessions to run because quite often we're welcoming new people into the world of Waybook, and I'm seeing some new as well as familiar names appearing up in the chat there. So if you're familiar with Waybook or if we've met before, hello again. And if you're not, welcome, welcome. So over today's session, we're going to be looking at basically the three fundamental steps that you can take in order to get the most out of your Waybook. But before we do that, let's just talk about the session very briefly. So if you wanted to jump in at any point, please feel free to either use the chat. This can be as interactive as you like, and it's always more interesting if you've got more to say. So please feel free to say hello. We also have the fantastic Sophia here from the Waybook team who is in the background and will be answering any thoughts or questions you've got. And I will also answer the questions on the session as well. We also have the Q&A panel if you've got any additional thoughts or questions, or of course, if you want to just share a bit more information, we've actually just launched a poll to get a sense of who you are, what's brought you here, and what sort of stage you are within the business as well. So in today's session, as I mentioned, we're going to look at these 3 points. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at how you can firstly structure your Waybook. Secondly, we're going to be looking at how you can then create compelling and dynamic content for your team. And then finally, we're going to be looking at how you can build your team and the effective permission structure to make sure that each individual member of your team has access to the right amount of information for that person to make sure that they have their single source of truth and can stay on the same page. And then finally, with the additional time we'll have left at the end, we'll be answering any questions you've got. But also, I want to use this as an opportunity to share with you some of the power features which I personally absolutely love within Waybook. So as well as being one of the co-founders here at Waybook, I'm also an avid Waybook user. So similar to you, I use Waybook to help structure and centralize our single source of truth and get everybody onto the same page. So thank you for completing the poll. Just to give you a sense of who's here, almost everyone is in operations, which almost never happens. We normally have a lovely spread of people across various different roles and departments. So if you are in operations, then you're in very good company. If you are the few founders and people in HR and other departments, then you are unique, almost unique on this session because most of us are in operations. And then what we're here to achieve is basically a smattering of everything. So people have ticked almost everything, which is amazing. And actually, almost everybody is in 1 to 20 people, with a few people between 20 and 100. So amazingly, we're actually all very similar in the same page, age, and stage of the business. So before I dive into Waybook, I just want to take a brief second to actually look at what success looks like from a Waybook account. Now, you're probably here because you know already that we exist to help you get your business on the same page. So with those operational minds that you have, you no doubt have various SOPs, various processes, procedures, policies in various different places. And Waybook is designed to centralize all of that knowledge in a way that means that you don't have to repeat yourself continuously. You don't have to worry about who has access to what, who can see various different bits of information. And once you create the single source of truth and empower your people with a Waybook, magic can truly happen. So some of the amazing things that I love to do is to speak to people using Waybook and hear what successes they've had within their businesses. And one person, actually head of operations of a company called Eastside Co, recently told me that they've scaled their Shopify agency from 40 people to 95 people in less than a year. And Laura, the COO of Eastside Co, basically said that she was able to decrease their onboarding time to just 20% of the time. And because they achieved so much operational efficiency by having this single source of truth, they were actually also able to onboard new team members whilst expanding the offering that the agency had because they had lots of nice headspace. Another story I've heard recently from an amazing founder, actually based here in London. is from Tim, who runs a company called Burrito Kitchen. Now, believe it or not, Burrito Kitchen is a burrito shop. It has a range of chains all over London, and they had the task to create a whole new concept and launch a chain of salad bars. But the deal Tim had with the landlord was that he could open 4 salad bars, new concept, in one day. So he needed to figure out the operations. He needed to figure out the staffing, the policies, the procedures, how it all worked, and launch in one day. So what he did was he centralized that knowledge in Waybook, onboarded people, and gave them that single source of truth so people can stay active and consistent throughout their first few days and weeks. And it was so successful that over the following few weeks, Tim was able to actually launch more salad bars within 3 weeks and has continued to grow there. So that is just a few of the success stories we've seen. Now, having a scan of the people who have started on their business already, or sorry, who have signed up for this webinar, I don't think there's any other burrito companies, but it's a nice comparable regardless. So let's just dive straight in. And once again, I do very much welcome you to message anything in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll keep this as interactive as possible. But let's first begin by talking about the structure that you have within your Waybook. So in order to make this as visual as possible, I'm going to jump into an example Waybook account. Now, on this account, you'll be able to see that, firstly, this will look very different to yours based on the information you have and also the branding and the access and the control and everything. But the backbone of your Waybook really is within the structure of your content. And we like to talk about building your structure as one of the first things you do within Waybook, because it just makes everything much easier when you're starting to centralize your knowledge and continue to grow. Now, when we say structure, what we mean is almost the tiers of knowledge and information you have within your Waybook. And that's what you see here on the left-hand side. In Waybook, we tier your knowledge in 4 different stages. We have your categories, your subjects, your documents, and your steps. So what are they? Firstly, when we look at category, we mean this high-level folder of information. So you'll see here that we have welcome document, sales and marketing, HR and training, SOPs. And you can think about this within your business almost as your big collections of knowledge, or perhaps your types of knowledge or business operational units within that. Some people actually don't have multiple categories. They just have one called library, which will be automatically put within your account. And then within a category, you have what we call subjects. Now, a subject is almost like a folder of information. You can essentially think of it almost like a department or a core collection of knowledge that runs across the business. So as you can see here, we have the sales handbook or the marketing handbook, and these will be the department collections, but we also then have things like the company policies or the welcome documents, and that is a folder of information that can be shared across the business. Now, within each subject, you'll see that we then have a series of documents. And in a document, we're basically talking about a core unit of information. So that might be a piece of knowledge, an insight, a policy or a procedure. So within the sales handbook, you can just think about what are the fundamental things that we need our sales team to know or do. And you can essentially just bullet point them almost as topics. So how we do lead generation, what our guiding statements are, how we do conduct sales calls, create proposals, things like that. Each of them would be a document, a policy or procedure. Similarly with marketing handbook, and then also with your HR policies, the policy would basically be the individual policy. Each document could be an individual policy. And then if we just look at the welcome documents, if you're using this to kind of welcome new employees in or kind of reiterate the values to your existing team, you might have things like your purpose and background, your company history, and your team. So that's your documents. And really, this is what we're talking about from a structure perspective. But when we go into a document, you'll see you have the final stage, which we call steps. So instead of it being a long form PowerPoint, PDF, Word document, you'll see a document is broken down into a series of 5 different steps. In this case, it can be as many or as few as you like. And what you'll notice is that each of these steps will be no more than about half a page of A4 if you were to print it out. But that's really just to keep people focused and digestible on the piece of information that you're looking to share. Now, a step can be a whole range of dynamic information. So yes, of course, text, and normally most documents start as text. And then you can start to build that up and add in links and call out boxes and videos and images. And as a reader, I can basically come into this document, read, watch, review. And as I mark that as complete, you'll see it's taking me to the next step. I'm understanding that, checklists, images, everything like that. And then as I get to the end part of that document, I'll also then get into a test or assessment, which can live within your document. So I can answer those questions. And just like that, you'll see that I get up to speed, and you will know that I have that information, but I also have pure access to reference back to it. So this is essentially your structure of your content. And for this first section, I more just want to zoom in on how we create a structure and what a structure actually is. Now, there's multiple ways that you can create a great structure within your Waybook. And part of this you'll have access to when you're actually signing up for your Waybook account by being able to select a particular type of business. You can define what sort of business you are, and we'll give you a suggested structure for what a good Waybook might look like for a team of your size in an industry that relates to you. Now, if you miss this, or actually you're not quite seeing something that you like, when you're in your Waybook, you can always go to AI Writer and Structure Builder. So within this Structure Builder, this is an AI-powered tool which will enable you to create the best playbook structure for your business. So if anybody just messages me in the chat what their business is, so legal practice or vets or whatever that is, I'll use this as an example for the first thing. Estella, I know you're there because you're messaging already. Online school. Okay, cool. So we can say write a playbook for an online school. Now, the more specific we get with this, the more information it's going to give us, and the better we can get. Estella, I know you said legal practice. Apologies. Shannon just nipped in a bit faster than you there. So basically, this is what Waybook is proposing is the best structure for you with the online school, Shannon. So we've got enrollment and how we do enrollment procedures. We've got curriculums. We've got student support. We've got operations. Now, that is all pretty good. And it's not just about the subjects, it's also suggesting out the documents you want. So let's say, for example, we want to add in a marketing function. You can essentially continue to communicate with the Waybook Structure Builder to essentially build out new structures. So here is what we think the policies, procedures, strategies that we should have for the online school within marketing. And of course, you can continue to build that. Now, what I'd say is it doesn't have to be perfect, and it's not going to lock you into that. But you can add that to the Waybook, and you can basically choose whether you add all of those documents or some of those documents, and that will then create the structure on the left-hand side. Now, those documents will be empty to begin with, but that's when we'll come on to the second part of building your Waybook. And of course, if you've got content, it's different to if it all lives within your head. So we can figure that out later. And once you've created your structure, everything will then be within a draft format. So you can then jump in, you can edit, you can drag and drop and move this content around. You can switch things into draft, you can do all sorts. But ultimately what we're trying to do is to have a high level view of what knowledge lives within your business that you ultimately want to document within your Waybook. So that's number one. And you can see the tool basically does that for you. And actually, just as a quick recap on how we can best create a great structure, one of the core things I recommend you thinking about is your subjects. So just ask yourself the questions, what are the core areas of knowledge that you have that you want to share? So of course, that can be departmental, that can be the collections of insights or the knowledge running across the business. Then for each of those, you can think about the individual documents within that. So if we're looking at enrollment as an area for the online business, you can, the online school, you can basically say within enrollment, what are the core insights or activities that we want to share? So that can be individual SOPs, or that can be specific activities and actions, or of course, knowledge. Then the next step to go down even further, once you click into that document, you can then just start to build out the content. But what I always like to do is almost think about the content from a high-level structural perspective before we're writing loads of information. And for each step title, we almost just say, what are the specifics you want people to know? So what do you want them to know, either step-by-step instructions, or of course, the core knowledge and insights. These can be the steps, these can be the parts of the process, the procedure, or the individual elements of a policy, for example. So that's essentially, in a nutshell, how to create an effective structure for your Waybook. The one thing I would stress is, even though I say it's useful to do this at the beginning to kick off with, it's not essential that you do it in that order, and it's not essential that you get it perfect to start with. Part of it is almost just to give us a bit of a vision about what Waybook could look like once it's kind of fully fleshed out for you and your team. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be starting to look at how we can start to create some content. And for content, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the example of Tim from Burrito Kitchen and just have a look at how he might have created some of his content and made that compelling for him to launch his salad bars. So what I'm going to do here is, actually, I'm going to delete that document. You can see how easy it is to delete and move things around. I'm going to quick add a new subject. You can also click up here and add subject, but I'm just going to use this quick add here and create a new subject. And one of Tim's subjects, so collections, might be salad bar management. So within this, and of course, nothing is complete without a good emoji. So we'll just put a nice little salad bar emoji there. So that in that subject, we're basically then going to say, what are the core documents that we want in that, the core piece of knowledge we want to share. So of course, you can click on that subject and add new documents in this way and start from either a template or a blank document. But I always like to use this quick add view. So I'm just going to add a new document there. And let's say one of them is salad bar refilling. And then you also might have, another document that might be, let's say, cashing up or whatever that may be. But let's look at salad bar refilling for now. You can tell that I'm not a salad bar expert at the moment. Give me a few weeks and I'll get there. But in this salad bar refilling document, we can then start to build out the steps. Now, one thing I'd recommend for every document is that you start with a step, which is, I like to call it the purpose and background, or the purpose and principles. And in this, what we're essentially doing is just almost bullet pointing the core things that people will get from that document, what it will and won't cover, and what you will and won't be able to do as a result of it. Now, the reason why I always suggest people to have this at the beginning of the document is twofold. One of them is so your reader can always see, okay, this is why I'm here, focuses the mind. But the real truth of it is it actually helps me, and hopefully you as a writer, know what you are and aren't going to do in that document. And if I don't complete that document now, it doesn't matter. I can pull it back. I can jump back in. That's fine. So once we've essentially got purpose and background, we can then start to use this add new step button at the bottom here. And we can almost just bullet point the areas that we're going to cover. So we're going to cover, let's say, initial setup. We'll add another one, which here is when to refill. Maybe we do how to refill. And perhaps let's do health and safety considerations. So here we've got the bare bones of the content. Now we actually, or of the document, now we actually want to create the content. And there's multiple ways that you can do this. Firstly, you saw when we were creating a document that we were offered to choose a template. Now, if you don't have any of the knowledge and actually it's a standard or a relatively common document, you can actually jump in, find a template that works for you and actually put that into one of your documents. But let's say I've got a bit of information already. So within purpose and principles, I'm essentially going to kind of put some fundamentals within that, just some text. I actually also might want to copy an image URL here and add a nice little video in there. Then we might actually want to put some core information in the initial setup. And ultimately, you can see here how it's very easy to either start typing on a new document. I can click this plus icon and use any of these various different types of content, or of course use that up here, and I can continue to edit and optimize the document. What I'd always recommend when you're creating a document is don't try and get it perfect first time. You can essentially overdo documentation. So just start with that bullet point of what you want to cover in each step. And we like to run on this principle of noting for yourself and then editing for somebody else. So essentially you can go in, you can then optimize and add in images and whatever else you want. Now, if you don't have any existing knowledge, there's not a template that works for you, but you think, do you know what? I would just absolutely love to have a health and safety considerations for the salad bar. Then you can actually also use our document writer. So we have an AI-powered document writer, and we can just say, actually, let me just copy that to save me rewriting that. We can say, write an SOP for health and safety considerations for a salad bar. Now, of course, this is not always going to be absolutely spot on and perfect for your business, but I guarantee you it's going to be much better than starting from a blank piece of paper. So you'll see here that we've got some knowledge and documentation. It's pretty good, actually. So we've got about handling and storage. We've got salad bar area being kept clean, work surfaces, how we store ingredients, how we use tongs and utensils, and then how we sanitize at the end of the day. Now, if you think that these should be broken down at all, then you can, of course, always go in, split that step, and it will kind of separate that content out. And then ultimately, you can start to build up what that knowledge is for you, but instantly, and you can really create that. So now we've got the bare bones of a document in absolutely no time at all. What we can do is we can publish that document. And if I toggle over into reader mode here, just by flicking on this toggle, you'll actually always be able to see what people can see on the other side. So you'll notice if I go back in and out of edit mode, it's showing me the draft, it's showing any unused unedited or unpublished changes, but let's just see what that's like from a reader. So I'm going in, I can watch a video, I can mark as complete. And if I get distracted, I can jump back into where I left off, what was recently reviewed. Obviously, these are empty steps. Look at that health and safety. And this is essentially what your team will go through and get themselves up to speed. However, imagine if after your first day on the document, you realize, you know what? We want to change the order of the salad bar. And instead of calling everyone, emailing everyone, telling everyone, getting them to read lots of documents, you can just simply edit, go into that step. And let's say we just want to swap around the meats and fish order. You can do that. And what you'll notice as you change is that everything's auto-saved and you can now publish. You can also comment. So I can say changed order. Okay, optimized order for, let's just say, efficiency. I can post that comment. I can add and tag other people to make sure that we're having a communication along that document. I can even actually then push that for review. So if I know, for example, Elle here is the person who really is in the know about the order, I can push that for a review and then she can publish it, or I publish that change. And if I publish that change and reset the progress, anybody with access will now get an email that says, hey, Wayne, there's a new part of the initial setup. Now, again, if we toggle back into reader mode, you'll notice that just that one individual step has been unticked, which means that you can go in, your team can look at the differences, they can get themselves up to speed. Now, I can just carry on going in how we can easily edit and change documents. But one last thing I will show you is you can actually look back and you can look at the previous versions of all of those steps. And if you want, you can say, okay, we changed the order. You can revert back to a previous version and publish that document again. Or, of course, we can actually look at the version history of that whole document. And you can also then see the various different comments alongside it, download it as a PDF, either this version or previous versions. It's all structured within your Waybook, and it all creates that single source of truth, which ultimately helps you keep everybody on the same page. So that's a bit of a whirlwind introduction. I'm part showing you everything you can do and also part showing you the best ways in order to go through in the order. But just as a quick recap on that to make sure that I'm not moving too sporadically through this. When it comes to content, what I would highly recommend is that we start to focus on those purpose and those outputs. So what do you want people to know and what do you want people to do? That can be the document purpose. It can also then be the skeleton bullet points in that document. And then we can start to look at creating that dynamic content. So now we can ask, what's the best way to deliver that information? Now, again, noting for yourself and editing for someone else is a great mentality to keep in terms of just extracting the knowledge and then optimizing the knowledge to share. So within that, you can then start to think beyond the text. Should it be a voice note? Should it be a video? Should it be a text, a checkbox, whatever that may be? But always it's important to try and stay concise and unambiguous to make sure that everybody can easily absorb and follow that information. And then finally, at the end of it, you can start to think about what's the proof and importance of that document. What do we need people to do afterwards? And what information do we need to know from them in order to know that they have that absolute understanding? So this can be tests and assessments. This can be required next actions. And the other thing that you can also remember is within your Waybook, you'll always be able to look at the reports, who has and hasn't done what, where they've been, or actually you can look specifically at that subject, see who has access, see who has and hasn't completed it, when they viewed it, all sorts like that. So it just fully equips you to manage that content from an arm's length. So I'm looking at the chat and the Q&A in case you do have any thoughts or questions. So do keep them coming as you do. But hopefully we're following along to this point of creating a structure. And then in each individual document, you can then start to create that content. Estella, you've asked a great question. How do you implement the quizzes? Well, we really believe in this single source of truth. So we don't believe that actually you should have a learning management system with testing on one side and then a knowledge base where you go to do your work on the other. So a test can actually be inserted in the same way that a piece of content can. So if we go to a new step, instead of adding a blank step or importing a document from Word, which you can do, or Tango, you can actually just add a test step. And that test step, let's say salad bar refilling, we can say what's the order of the salad bar. And let's say meat first, fish first. You can also use these tests to be like, do you agree to our health and safety considerations? And essentially you can use this as an approval flow. So yes, no, whatever that may be. You can add images, you can do all sorts within that test. And you can also actually set up various different permission or structures around that. What percentage pass rate do they need? How many questions do you ask them? What order do you ask those questions? So again, I'll publish that. I won't notify people because we'll just say it's a small change in this scenario. And then as I get to that, you'll see here that, okay, I can answer that. And yes, I do agree. And you have to complete that in order to get 100% on your document. Now, if you've assigned that document to somebody and they have to complete it, the system will continuously remind them, not too much, but if they've not completed it, it will send them a summary of their incomplete documents. If you put a due date on that document, then ultimately their system will continue to remind them until they do it. So just on that due date there, we can essentially say within the access, I'm able to then set up a specific, within the settings, I'm able to actually set up a specific due date on that document. So everybody within the business needs to complete this by the 26th. Or we can say after somebody get access, they have a week to complete that document and essentially then get themselves up to speed and prove back to you that they know that knowledge. So just to show you how that looks is if I go back into the reader mode once again and I'll reset the progress, you'll see now that this is due in 1 month based on that permission. And also on the dashboard, because that's the next document that's due for me, and this mixes between all your documents, it will just say, here's the next piece of information, here's the next piece of information for you to go. So it literally removes all of that conversation that you have going forward. Now, the final thing I wanted to share with you is now we've got some of our structure in, got some of our content in, and before we start to look at any of the other exciting things, how can we bring our team in as a really clear and consistent way? Now, I guess most of you are here because you're operators of your business and you are either growing or you want to grow. So we don't need you being able to constantly think about who has access to what document and where they are and things like that. You can actually entirely manage your document permissions using groups. So if you set up a Waybook group, this enables you to basically mirror a similar structure of your business. So let's say we have the 4 fundamental teams: customer service, finance, marketing, let's say front of house or operations. Within that group, you can essentially then say these 3 people have access to these 8 subjects, and you can add any content that you want within it. Now, as you kind of mature within the Waybook, you can also decide really specifically, not just whether they can see it or not, but can they edit it? Can they publish content? What can they do on that specific piece of content? And then one step further, you can also then customize that to say, well, look, actually, let's add this Waybook welcome document back in. On this document, we actually want them to be able to read the purpose and background, but because they're marketers, we want them to be able to edit the company history. And you can just create that custom permission. So now when you add somebody into your Waybook, you can literally just add them in, decide whether they're an admin or whatever you want them to be, and then you just add them into the relevant groups. So, okay, that person's marketing, and they're also in operations. So the mix of all of those permissions will dictate what they do and don't see on their side. Now, if you're sitting there being like, Mike, I don't want to do groups just yet, it's a bit intense, that's absolutely fine. We actually recommend that you add a few other people in as admin allies to help you get going. And then you can always actually just click on any individual user, see what groups they're in, and see what the permissions are based on those groups. And if you want, say, Angela, yeah, Angela here, you can just override it. We want to just give Angela publish access on the Waybook documents, welcome documents, and you can do it like that. So it's really easy. One thing that you set up once, and then it just grows as your business grows, as your team grows. And of course, you can also then remove people, swap people, give people access to new content that you need. And that is all done with a couple of clicks rather than sharing files and checking up on things and all sorts. So as a quick refresher, reminder, summary on that, don't forget to add in your admin allies. We honestly see a massive difference when people get a couple of other people into their Waybook, get them perhaps to watch this video and say, look, let's build this together. Who else is responsible for building or creating that content? Now, these might be other department heads where that knowledge lives, but it might also just be operational minds, people that think in a relatively systemized way that you want to bring on board to help you get going. Then you can think about that team structuring. So we highly recommend just looking at what your team structure looks like and basically build out your groups to match that. So typically, these might be your department groups, your responsibility levels, and perhaps your location areas as well. If you've got various different areas, that will mean they have different knowledge. And then finally, once you figure that, you can start to look at who do you want to control and do different things with your content. So either creating new content, should there be an editor, which means they can make changes, comment, things like that, or publish, which means they can then share that information to the rest of the team. So ladies and gentlemen, in an absolute whirlwind 35 minutes, that is a fundamental introduction into your Waybook and the 3 steps on how to get going. But if I may, and I'm going to ask you now if you've got any thoughts or questions or anything you want to share, because I'm keeping my eyes on this chat. But as you're racking your brains for that, I just want to show you in quick fire fashion some of the things that I personally absolutely love as a Waybook user. These are the things that you get when I'm geeking out on the products here as Waybook. So of course, we've structured it. Everybody's onboarded or we add them in. Firstly, it's important to know that you can customize the flow of a Waybook based on that role and that position. So here you'll see we have front office onboarding. Within that front office onboarding, we can specify the individual documents and the order that we want that person to go through. You can then also create deadlines against that document. So, you know, we can say on your first week, complete this. On your second week, you can do that. On your third week, you can do this. And that's all manageable within your flow. That essentially gives you the power to link a flow to a group, which basically means when you add somebody in marketing, it will control the permissions that they have, and it will also send them on the custom pathway, which is perfect for that marketing onboarding. I love it. Now, once somebody is onboarded, what they mainly will do to interact with your Waybook is using search. And folks on the call. This is what will save you all of your time and all of your headspace. So any question that anybody has, where are the logo files, is something that I always seem to get. You search where are the logo files, instantly you're taken to that logo document. You have the files. It's structured around the knowledge and information. It's just there. It kind of gives you everything you need. So that's one thing. The search is super, super powerful. The second part of search is genuinely what I think is probably the most exciting thing that I've seen, let alone we've built within knowledge management. And if I go into our internal Waybook, believe it or not, how meta is that? I'm going to show you a relatively new feature called Ask. Now, Ask enables you to entirely turn your knowledge within your Waybook into an AI-powered chatbot for your team. So sometimes it's great for somebody to search logo, as we did in this one, and got to the logo files. But imagine if somebody just wants a quick answer and they want to ask you, or they want to get that information. For example, what are our regular meetings? Now, there might be a document on meetings, but there also may be other meetings mentioned in other documents. Now, Waybook Ask will, in the same way that ChatGPT or any other AI tool, will respond, but the information is entirely based on your company knowledge. It's private to your team, so no other AI is trained on it. But most importantly and excitingly, it's really specific to the permission level that you have given that person. So if I've asked this question in marketing and I have access to various marketing documents, it will collate that information and give me a different answer to perhaps if I was in finance. Now, you get this answer, and that's great. This sounds good. And I can say, what happens on a weekly stand-up, because I can kind of continue to interact with that. And it will basically say it's on Monday at 1 p.m. The entire team discussed this. This is what we focus on. Now, that knowledge is in documents, but it's not just pulling it from that one document. It's actually pulling it from 4 different documents and summarizing it in a really quick and easy way. So if you think about the power of all of your team basically having a manager that just sits next to them and fluent on everything they need to know, it really, really, really does change the game. Now, just going back to search, because it is super valuable as well, not only can you search within Waybook, you can also use any of our browser extensions to search your knowledge base. And if you're using Slack or Teams, which I'm going to bet is the vast majority of people here, you can actually search your Waybook from within your chat. So you can integrate, and if somebody asks you where are the logo files on Slack, you slash Waybook and write logo, and it will search your Waybook within Slack, and you send the appropriate document to that person. So it basically means that it just continues to keep all of that knowledge in the same way that you are focusing. Now I've got a question, a few questions. Asali, you said if you get a recording, and Shannon, Sophia's already mentioned that, but absolutely. Yes, Shannon, we will give you the replay. If you've missed some key things, I'm going to bet it's because I often speak at 100 miles an hour. So you will get that recording, and you can watch it in a comfort of your own time and space. Wayne, you've said, can I show how you add a template that you can pull off Waybook and use in another application? Yes, so that's a great point. So firstly, if you're looking to create a template or use a template, you can go into the templates. Let's say we want a policy. Let's say we want a GDPR compliant policy. And let's put this into this subject. So you'll see here that we've created this. Now, this is a template which you can then customize, and it will be ready for use. And if we publish that document, of course, the best way to share a document is within your Waybook, because you'll know who hasn't seen it. You'll know when it's updated. You'll have all the tracking. But if there's a piece of knowledge in your Waybook that you want to share with somebody outside of your Waybook, you can do that in 3 different ways. One of them is actually by going into your settings, and you can go to sharing, and you can turn any document to be publicly shareable. So if you now take this link, and let's go in there, you'll see that actually we now have a public viewable link for that knowledge that you're sharing with other people. Now, this is essential in order for you to actually have that single source of truth and be able to share things like your brand guidelines, your terms and conditions, your onboarding for clients in and out of your Waybook. The other thing you can do is you can also embed that into other tools. So say you have another portal or platform that you're using. If you want to take the embed of that document, again, it will show you the Waybook document, but in another tool. And the other thing, if you want to be able basically be able to export that document, you can then essentially go into the settings. You can enable PDF download, and actually we can then download that document as a PDF. And within that, you're then able to open the doc, and you'll see that it's branded, it's dated, it's structured, it's linked back to that core piece of information. And this is a great way for you to have that physical version of your Waybook for other people. The other thing is that you can also generate a QR code for somebody to kind of scan that. So we see this in warehouses and physical locations on machinery. If somebody just wants a quick recap on how to use something or do something, they can scan, get it on their phone and go. Estelle, you said, what would happen to your documents if you were to stop using Waybook? Would they be completely deleted? So no, firstly, all of the content on your Waybook is always yours, of course. You can extract knowledge in the same way that you put it in, so you can kind of pull it out here. I think I might have answered your question there with a PDF. You can actually also export all of your documents as PDF if you want. And you'll find with a lot of platforms, often it's very restrictive. Once you put knowledge in, you'll never get it out. We don't do that. It's your knowledge. You do whatever you want with it. The reason why we actually don't worry about that is because the value of having your Waybook documents in your Waybook is the real value. The AI ask, the ability to kind of check on progress, to change permissions, to pull knowledge back, to iterate, to look at the changes, comment alongside it. It really makes sure that actually it's effortless for you to manage your documents. But of course, things change, situations change. So if you do need to leave, that's absolutely fine. You have our full support in doing that. So a few other bits. You've got the publicly viewable, how we can easily create things. We also have lots of different integrations, so either natively or with Zapier. So this can connect with all of your other tools. For example, if you've got an HR tool, and when you add somebody in, you want them to get a Waybook profile, all of that can be fully connected and customized. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm almost coming to the end of today's session, but just a quick reminder that you are not alone. In your Waybook, you will have a Waybook document called Getting Started with Waybook, which, believe it or not, helps you go through the fundamental steps of starting your Waybook. You also have access to the fantastic support team led by Sophia here on the call, and you'll be able to access that either within the Waybook support. I'll actually jump in just to show you that. So you can click on this little icon here. You can speak to some of the team, you can book a coaching call, you can send us a message, you can do whatever you want. And there's also a very good help center available. So if there's ever anything that you want to know, you can basically search that help center. So say, how do we put this on our own domain, for example? You jump in there and it will basically take you through the links, the steps, the videos, the images, and how to do that. You, of course, have the access to the Waybook templates. They're all available for free within there, and the AI writer. But if there's a particular template you need additional support with, let us know. We do have a full-time team of template writers, document writers that will help you on the way. And we also do free product coaching. So if you wanted to jump on a call with any of the team, then we'll be happy to kind of jump on and support you getting going. But don't forget that this doesn't all have to live with you, and utilizing the expertise of your team members, or expert teams, that's probably a nice accidental merging of words, by getting your team in as early as possible and almost just adding them to a document. You can create someone a document owner and say, hey, Shannon, can you just actually build out this document, or can you pull this information in? It's the best way of centralizing your knowledge and also creating this culture of knowledge management and iterative knowledge design. And then the final thing, if you're sitting there thinking, Mike, I love it, I want it, we need a single source of truth, but you just don't have the time, or you don't want to do it, we actually have full-time Waybook consultants that literally just build out Waybooks all day, every day. So you can just jump on. You can either do one of two things: data migration, where you send all of your documents to us and we will structure and build that in your Waybook for you. Or if you don't have the knowledge you want or don't know how to structure it, you can work with a Waybook consultant, and they will literally do all of this process for you. So Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of today's session. This is my last call for questions. I know a few of you have been absolutely great in asking questions and contributing along the way, so thank you so much. And without further ado, we'll bring today's session to a close. So thank you so much for joining today. Once again, I've been Mike, one of the co-founders here at Waybook. We are so excited for you to create your single source of truth and to support you get your business on the same page. If there's anything you can do, we really, or anything we can do to support you get going, we genuinely are very excited to always hear from you. So don't be a stranger, get in touch. And I really look forward to speaking with you, some of you soon. Have a great one and see you on the other side. Bye-bye.